Welcome to Kettlebell Corner, where strength meets theory, where we take you on a deeper dive into all things kettlebell. I'm Jeremiah Waylon, and that's Roger Parks. And today, we want to talk about the 100 swing challenges. And, you know, Roger, we're a social creature, human beings, and yet we are drawn to this solely individual endeavor. In fact, drawn so much that you said, let's talk about this. And I want to know how and did you come up with this idea to talk about 100 swing challenges, and how you doing, buddy?
I'm lovely. Thank you. Is that a speak social?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd ask you,
well,
but
it's
I
you
don't
being
care.
social.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So I was on YouTube this morning and trying to come up with a topic for today, because I'm trying not to be an elitist asshole. We, believe it or not, really want this stuff to be accessible. So I started looking at videos and seeing what people are interested in. And one thing that kept recurring is this idea of some videos on 100 swing challenges. And let's just get it out of the way. 100 swing challenges usually done for about a month. It's where you do 100 swings a day for a month. That's kind of the beginning and the end of the description. That's what people are doing. So saw the challenges, saw the sets and reps, saw questions about how many swings should I do. And it seems like a pretty good topic to talk about, just because I think that it's not common knowledge what should motivate your workout program. How should you choose to do this or that? How do you decide and evaluate, should I do a 100 swing challenge? Is it right for me? What information is there? What information is missing? There's a lot to unpack, and there are a lot of things to talk about, but I do think that it's useful as either a coach or a practitioner to understand what exactly is so magical about 100 swings, if anything, and under what conditions does this actually make sense, and then under what conditions does it not? Now there's another, what's the other one? It's a month. There's like some obscene amount of challenge, some obscene amount of swings.
Yeah, wasn't it like 30,000 or 10,000 or something like that?
Well, that's a big range, man. I think it's 10.
I think it's 10 too. But either way, either one seems obscene. I don't know. I guess it depends on your level.
I think so. You know, to get this out of the way and just put that out there. I'm not going to spend any time talking about this, but I do think that I think it's a 10,000 swing challenge.
Yeah, it's 10,000.
I think out of hand, that is a bad idea for most people most of the time. And I'm talking about high 90%.
Look, I tried it and it sucked for me. I don't think I completed it, and I've been doing this for years.
There's no justification for it scientifically. It's not going to make you better physically. Maybe it'll make you better mentally, but I mean, if that's really what you have to go meditate or something. Anyway, so we're not talking about that. That's silly and that's extreme. We're talking about 100 swings a day. Can you do it? Should you do it? So I saw these videos and I started, thinking about this. And I asked AI, because I do that every now and then, to see what does AI think? Is it safe? That was the first question I asked.
Of course it's safe. According to AI, everything is safe.
Well, actually it's not. Not always. Not always. Okay. I've had some good conversations with AI recently, and the consensus.
What did the AI say?
The consensus is that it's safe if it's safe. So it was very circular.
That sounds like a very Roger answer. It depends.
It was, it's considered safe if you're adapted to it, if your form is safe, if it's acceptable, blah, blah, blah. But it didn't really get into much more. It did reference like a Reddit thread.
I read that Reddit thread, as a matter of fact.
Did you see there's one guy who claims to be doing 1,100 swings per session? Yeah, did you read that far down?
Yeah. These guys are insane.
Yeah, that's not either somebody's lying. Someone's swings are like maybe this guy's doing swings with a 5-pound kettlebell. I don't know. Anyway,
which actually I think was suggested in one of the other sources, the AI that you sent me cited.
So not great stuff. And that's probably an upcoming episode, is this idea of should you ask AI fitness advice? Because I do think there's some really solid stuff there. And I think it's very useful. I'm not a hater by any stretch of the imagination. No, but
okay,
just like anything, you have to come to these You have to come to these decisions prepared. And that's really what this is all about. That's why I wanted to talk to you about this today.
Okay.
So the 100 swings, should you do it? Should you not do it? Does it make sense? What are you likely doing? Under what conditions should you do this thing? And maybe we can talk about some of these so people can get a broader idea of what goes into training decisions, and then they can make them more effectively for themselves rather than just getting sucked into a challenge that may or may not be effective.
Well, it's definitely I'm doing this challenge, Roger, because I got got a wedding coming up, and I need a tight butt and burn fat. And so this is the perfect challenge for that.
Are you baiting me into arguing with you, or are you asking if that's appropriate?
But I want to know because we have general people, like this probably applies more so to the practitioner. I suppose some coaches are doing this, and I've seen coaches do this. I, for one, have been somebody who's done a 100 swing challenge for some weird reason. At the time, I felt it was nice for me. But why might somebody want to do this? Just a regular person. What are we talking about here?
Unfortunately, the results are going to vary. You see that on the commercials. Results may vary. Yeah. Results are going to vary to a substantial degree in most cases. But there are some things that we want to think about. And another thing that I do want to talk about real quick is it seems that TikTok has gotten credit for these 100 swing challenges. And if you go back to Simple and Sinister, which has been, kettlebellers doing 100 swings a day.
That's nothing new.
It's nothing new. It's been around for a long time. No one on TikTok invented this. In fact, when me and Jeremiah were going through the Simple and Sinister program, which if you're not familiar with it, I do recommend it. Go find the book, read the book, whatever. But that does, at least in the old form, I think there's a little nuance now, but it was 100 swings a day, 10 get-ups. And I would do that. I would do it 6-7 days a week. I'd take a day off when I wanted to. I got some great results from it. Two-hand swinging a moderate bell. And I really, I was doing it because I was drilling my form. And I was getting some conditioning, getting ready for strong first level 1. And really didn't know how to prep. We hadn't contacted coaches. We really weren't in this all that much at this point, but I got some great results. I got some muscle mass. I can say positively, my pants fit differently. Like I did
quite a hiney.
I did grow some muscle, which is not necessarily expected. That's why I say, the results may vary. But when you're asking who should do this, is this the right thing for you to do? Let's say to prep for a wedding. This isn't the only thing that I would have you do. Because how it affects you is there's going to be some variation. So why would you want to do this? I think first and foremost, one of the most important things that you're going to get out of a 100 swing challenge is just baseline activity. You're doing something every day. Is it going to be exhaustive? Probably not, because if you're to the point where you're considering a 100 swing challenge, you should have your swing dialed in. This is not, I don't give beginners this because there is time for soft tissue to adapt. You've got to get ready, or you got to get used to the rigors of swinging, and you can't just go right into 100 a day. It doesn't work. And even if you do 100 a day, you're going to have some breaks in between. So this is right off the bat. This is an intermediate to an advanced challenge. If you don't put yourself in that bucket, I don't recommend this. Even though you think you can do it, you're probably going to get some sort of overuse injury in time. And I'm not one to warn people off of these things. I've seen it over and over again.
Yeah, take your time, get that swing dialed in, get it right, because oftentimes when you're on higher reps, what's the first thing that's going to go is usually your form. You're going to get tired, and especially if you're doing 20 reps every 5 minutes or something crazy like that.
Sure.
Which these are things that are suggested when you look this up on the TikTok.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's a whole other question. For starters, the first question you've got to ask is what's your goal? Why are you doing this? So in this scenario, it could be useful to get your baseline activity level in, to get a little bit of conditioning, in addition to other work. I wouldn't do this alone. And you're also going to improve your technique. If you're practicing something 100 times a day with intent, nice quiet space, and you're focusing on your technique, then you're going to get better. So what are the other things that might influence the outcomes? Now, I don't know, when you were doing Simple and Sinister, what bell were you using?
I think shoot. I mean, this is, I guess, if we were referring back to way back in the day type of thing. Yeah. I think it was a 24 even. Maybe we got up to the 32 as time went on. I feel like it ended at the 32 because we were starting to get it, but by no means, I mean, honestly, I don't even think back then my swings were super great. You know, I was getting what I thought was them done. And when I look back on the videos, it's a little bit of
not awesome
moments. Yeah. It's like, you know, it's like how they would look if you were new to swinging and you're taking on 100 swings a day. But I think it was a 24, and I think at least I eventually finished up with the 32 because we were trying to actually get that simple aspect of the Simple and Sinister.
Yes. And I think I did it longer than you did. I think you went into more complex programming that I just wasn't interested in getting into at the time. So I stayed with it a bit longer, and I was using the 32 with certainty. And when I really started to get my results is when I was using the 32. So 32 kilos, I don't know what I weighed back then. I was probably I'm usually somewhere between 185 and 195. So maybe I was a little lighter, but let's just say I was there. But you know, it's a decent enough portion of my body weight, and I did gain muscle mass. But the reason why I'm pointing out the size of the bell is commonly when you're new to intermediate, people will recommend, you know, a lot of men start with a 16 kilo bell or a 24 kilo bell, and I don't think that's enough stimulus to make muscle growth likely. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen. You know, I don't want to say you can't do it because I've seen it, but we're talking about your time. It's valuable. You're committing it to this challenge. Are you likely to do this for muscle growth? Not if you're swinging a 24 kilo bell. So maybe once you can get that bell a bit bigger, that may make a difference. And that's when I started noticing some solid changes in my grip. That's when I started noticing that I was a little girthier in the hips, you know, and I noticed my conditioning improvement. And I did hit the simple standard, and, you know, switching from 2-hand to 1-hand swings, blah, blah, blah. So the bell size is really going to make a difference for additional adaptations. But before then, you know, probably not. And there's something that you need to think about with your programming. When you get recommendations for volume, now you need to understand that swings don't work the same way as a lot of other exercises. The soft tissue behavior is going to be different. Maybe we should talk about that at some point.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
The soft tissue behavior is going to be different. So it's not going to follow your normal recommendation, but the common recommendations that I've seen for weekly number of sets, how many sets are you doing to gain some muscle mass? Is, you know, I've seen some studies suggest as few as 4, but I usually see somewhere in the 10 to 20 range. But there's one really important variable that's called out, and that's their working sets. So if you're doing a warm-up set, that's not counted in your volume. And what I'm really pointing out is that there is a minimum threshold that you need to hit. And one of the most important things that you can get with kettlebells is understanding kettlebell swing does not equal this or that. It's how are you swinging one or two arms? What is the bell size? What intent are you using? Are you trying to move the bell as quickly as possible? What's your rest, your work to rest ratio? All of these things are going to determine the stimulus. So if I go and I take a 16 kilo bell every morning and I swing it for 100 reps, even if I do 100 straight, what I am likely to see, if anything, is maybe an improvement in my grip strength, and I'll probably be a little looser if I start my day off with 100 swings at a light weight. Maybe my conditioning will improve a little bit, but beyond that, I'm not going to get any muscle mass. It's just not going to happen because that load does not meet the minimum threshold for my body to notice. So if you want to adapt, go ahead.
So I guess that would be you're probably about to explain what I'm about to ask, but so when you take the kettlebell swing, say you're doing 10 sets of 10, maybe you're not even into what's considered a working rep until 5 sets in. Basically.
Working set, yeah.
Working set, until 5 sets in. So is that what you're getting at with the way the kettlebell sort of work?
It is, and usually, working sets are determined by load. So, let's say you're 200 pounds on the bench, and that's where you're working with for the day, and you do 2 or 3 sets, maybe at 100 pounds, 135 pounds, 145 pounds. You're not doing a working set until you hit the weight that you're intending to hit, and your strength levels are going to adjust in accordance with a percentage of your maximum lift. And, I've seen numbers suggesting that happens as low as 65%. So if your max is 100 pounds, then you'll need to lift at least 65 in order for your body to stand up and take notice and say, hey, I'm going to adapt. I'm going to get stronger, and I'm going to give you more muscle mass. That's obviously very reductive, but that's a general idea. So when we're looking at these swings, if we're doing 100, right, but we're not doing it with a sufficient load, then your body's not going to really stand up and take note. Your body's not going to say, whoa, let's grow some muscle mass because the mechanical tension on these fibers is just too great. I need to get thicker in order to, facilitate this activity. Is that fair? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. So what you're saying is, if the TikTok challenge says grab your 10 or 15 pound kettlebell and do 100 swings, you're probably just checking a box to do 100 swings. You're not necessarily going to gain any sort of significant adaptation that gets you that high knee or flattens that tummy. All the things I'm looking for.
Well, the flatten the tummy part may not be true. I'm more likely to think that this is if this goes to an overall daily activity, if your daily activity increases, if this gets you up, if it changes the course of your day, if it makes you more serious about your diet and your activity level, your exercise, then by all means it can be effective. But yes, if you're really looking at bang for your buck, you're going to need to use a heavier bell if these are adaptations that you want. It's going to have to get to a point where you're a little bit challenged throughout these swings, and when you're intermediate to advanced, you can move now. Let's say. Let me finish my sentence. You can move a sizable bell safely for 100 swings a day and not break down. But if you are getting to the point where you are, let's say, a beginner and moving into that intermediate range, and let's say you've been swinging a 24 forever, and now you're moving into, I'm just going to jump right to a 32. Not a good idea, because when you use a heavier load in order to adapt, it's going to require some recovery. So that's the other part of this. Not only do you have to hit a minimum threshold of difficulty, you can't push yourself too far past a window of recoverable activity. If you push so hard that you can't recover from it, then it's not something you should be doing every day. And then, of course, you're going to break down. So you've got to be in a nice window. So, I can swing a 40 kilo bell with 2 arms pretty comfortably. Can I do it for 100 and workout? Absolutely. I've done it a lot of times. Can I do it every day for a month? I don't know. Probably. But I'd be a lot more comfortable at a 32 based on my body weight, et cetera, et cetera. That will get me enough to give me some adaptations, but it probably won't push me so far out of that recovery window where I'll break down.
So when you see the general outlook of the challenges, hey, just do 10 every minute for 10 minutes, and then you get your 100. If you're jumping up in that bell size, maybe it's safer to switch that to 5 reps, give yourself that more recovery time, something like that.
Absolutely. Because, your individual, your inter-exercise bouts, the bouts of swing. So you're talking about, 5 reps versus 10, there's going to be a difference. So let's get into this. You have 100 quality swings. Style. Yeah. That's your goal. Can I do 100 swings straight with a 40 kilo kettlebell? Probably not. Maybe with a gun to my head. I'd probably tear something in my forearms, and I'd definitely be bleeding. But let's go with no. Even if I could, it's not a good idea. So, how do I break that up? Now, I can do 5 sets of 20 with a lighter bell. Again, probably not something I want to do. And if I did it, I would definitely feel the forearms at a certain point. And maybe 3, 5, 10 days into this challenge, I might start to feel like I've got a little wear on my shoulders. So now I'm going back down to, should I do, and again, this is 2 arm swings. So should I do 10 sets of 10? Now we're starting to get into a little more a little more comfort. Okay. And then of course I could do 20 sets of 5. That's also another option. And that's probably going to be the easiest thing. So I'm going to want to do 5 sets for me personally with this load. I'm going to want to do 5 sets of 20. I'm sorry, 20 sets of 5. I'm going to want to do 20 sets of 5, or I'm going to want to do 10 sets of 10. Those are going to provide different adaptations based on how I do them. So that's going to be another thing,
So how are we talking hard style to the hardest max, or is there some room for in between there? What, and I guess that all factors into the intent, what you're trying to get out of this 100
Sure.
swings. Are you just doing it to check boxes, or are you actually trying to gain some different types of fitness out of it?
Sure.
So where do the benefits lie there?
So now we're getting specific. So if you just want to do it to drill your form and get some activity in, then you're not getting as tight as you can. You're not using like a full on power breath. You're not just crushing the bell. Okay. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. You don't need to do all those things for every swing. You can go through the motions. You can do it quite safe, but that's going to mean that you're using a lighter bell and you're not swinging it as hard as you can. If I am attempting to, let's say, get more conditioning out of it, then I'm going to want to do longer bouts. So I'm probably going to want to do, I'll probably want to do 5 sets of 20. And in which case, the load is going to be a little less important. I'm going to want to keep it as high as I can. But it's not going to be, again, I'm not going to use a 40 kilo bell. I'm not going to use a 40 kilo bell for the conditioning. I'm probably going to do that if I want to maybe hope to get a little strength and get some forearm grip strength. Let's say I want to move the bell as quickly as possible. Again, I'm not going to want to do high sets or high reps. In fact, I can do a set of 5, and that's about that. And then I'm going to take a nice long rest. However, okay, and this is huge, don't do a 100 swing challenge if you're looking for performance. This is not a performance goal. Because
so you're not going to develop a lot of power. Try to develop your power with the 100 swing challenge.
The problem is the way this is the way power, what most people call power.
Right.
Let's say rate of force development, learning to move a bell quickly, or putting a lot of force into it in a short period of time. Your goal is to put every ounce of your body into every swing. So you're going to have very short bouts, and you're going to rest a lot in between them. But more importantly, this is very neurologically demanding, and you will not be able to do this effectively every day. This is not something that you should do for a performance-based goal like that. If anything is performance-based, then you should consider the conditioning part of it. You could do every day, that I've seen. So you might get nice and sweaty, and you might get out of breath, but you're not crushing your swings. So can you do some days like that? Sure. You can do some days like that, and then some that are a little more for conditioning, and some where you're just moving and checking the box.
Well, yeah, and that was something I was going to ask. Like, if you were to say one of your students comes up to you, or even you or myself, we're like, yeah, let's do this 100 swing challenge, and we want to get a variety of things out of it. And let's say we got 7 days a week, we could set up sort of a schedule, so to speak. Obviously, depending upon how your body recovers from whatever the previous day's 100 swings are. Let's say we're 2 weeks in, you did 100 straight for a week, and you're like, okay, my body's a little bit used to this. I am in that more advanced level. How do you think you should set up your week so you can get the most out of it? Time is not a factor. There are days where you have more time, and there's days where you don't, but you can figure that out on your own. So is there a recommendation you have?
No.
Okay,
I wouldn't.
I knew you would say that.
I wouldn't make the recommendation. What I would say is, if you're going to do this challenge, which again, you're going to get better at kettlebells. You're going to get some baseline activity level. You're going to get some endurance in your muscles. You'll probably get a little thickness if you're using a substantial enough bell. But I don't think that this challenge is ideal for a specific goal or a specific adaptation. It's just not the best way to go about doing anything, except for maybe some conditioning. Some conditioning. But even then, it's like, okay.
It's probably not enough. Like, you're 10 minutes in, that's all the conditioning you're going to get. Right?
Well, and let's think about this. If we're doing longer sets of swings. Let's say we're doing, 5 sets of 20, right? Or maybe if we do two sets of 50, but then you're not working for very long. Like you're just kind of done. So, this is not a great thing to do for a specific adaptation. It's great, I think, for people to get moving, to get consistent, to feel like they're doing something and getting something out of the way, and then kind of being surprised with what happens. That's honestly, I have recommended this to people before. I don't think it's a bad thing, but again, it's not super specific. It's not super precise. So I'm not going to make a recommendation. This isn't going to be in someone's program. Unless it's
like a warm up or something. You're pretty advanced, that's like get us going, or finish or something.
Or, it's like, hey, I need 2 weeks to get into this and let me get ready. Fine. Do 100 swings a day and do your 10 get-ups, do it 7 days a week, anywhere between 5 and 7 days a week. And let's see how you feel. If you need to take a day off, take a day off. So it's, again, it's not super specific, but you have to understand what levers you're pulling. And one of the I think the problems with this idea of a kettlebell swing is people look at it as one thing. Like it is this. And the way I like to think about it, not my favorite analogy, but I think it's effective and it resonates with people, is you want to think of this idea of pharmaceuticals, okay, drugs. If I were to go into, you had a comment. What are you going to say?
Well, as soon as we start talking about pharmaceutical, the AI is going to ban us, bro.
So you walk into your doctor's office, and doctor says, "Hey, how you doing? Oh, I got a headache. Oh, here, let me bring you in the back." And he tells the nurse to put you on a morphine drip.
You know my doctor?
Probably not the best doctor, because that's going to violate, one, you're not using the right tool for the job. And this whole idea that we like minimum effective dose, that is certainly not the minimum effective dose. So, we need to think about a swing as a particular thing. It's not just an exercise. If we look at it as a drug, it's like, oh, I'm going to use this drug to do this thing. And you ask coaches about, what's a swing good for? Like, oh, it's good for power. And like, that's still too reductive.
And the back of the arms.
Yeah, that was one of the things in the one of the I think it was the Yahoo story. One of their professionals, their certified personal trainers, said that the kettlebell swing's really good for the back of the arms. That's a new one. I haven't heard that in the years I've been doing this.
I'm working on it.
Anyhow, if you look at a kettlebell not just as one thing, not just a drug, but if you look at a kettlebell swing as a drug, if you look at a kettlebell swing as its own little medicine cabinet, and you can open it up and you can say, oh, what are all the different things that I can get from this? Just like you would get a different result from a different drug or a different vitamin. Maybe we should go vitamins rather than drugs. Maybe that will get us banned.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Anyway, so you could say, hey, I'm going to use these I'm going to try to get a little bit of muscle mass. I'm going to try to get some conditioning. I'm trying to get some, I'm trying to learn to move things quickly. I'm going to get some strength, whatever it happens to be. Then you can look at your swing and pull the different attributes from it. But this idea of 100 swing challenge tends to look at a swing just as one thing. And it will be influenced by the size of the kettlebell you use, so how much mass. It will be it'll be influenced by your reps, your rest, and the intent with which you move the bell. Are you trying to just crush this thing, or are you trying to, just kind of go with the flow? So these are all different adaptations that we can get with the same tool. So we shouldn't just look at it as one thing.
So that's a good point, and that's pretty much what I would say would be the four-ish things that you want to consider doing a challenge like this. Mm-hmm. Are you going to get the right size bell for whatever adaptation? And like essentially you could go into each day's process being like, all right, I kind of want to focus on this aspect of the swing medication today. And so that for that sake, I'm going to grab a bigger bell, and maybe I stop at 100. Maybe I go a little more because I'm want more conditioning, but that's pretty good a summary of what this challenge actually is, what it could be, and not to be confused as it's the thing you do this and you're going to get X result. Because if you do this, you're just going to get 100 swings a day.
Sure. And then honestly, it's like a surprise. I think these challenges.
Oh yes, that's what I wanted to mention. I love that analogy. Like, this is a surprise. What could happen?
What could happen?
What comes from it?
And you could run it multiple times and play. You do one arm versus two arm. You can change your sets and your reps. You can figure things out. Can you learn to manage fatigue by cycling through different schemes? These challenges can be good when people need some baseline conditioning, meaning they have the technique. Maybe they haven't worked out in a while and they're trying to build back up. You want to get some consistency, and you really just want to get better, not a very specific type of better. Like, I just need to do something. Like, I feel like a slug. I've been absolutely useless. I've done nothing. So let me do my 100 swings a day. Let me check the box. Let me register again as a certified human. And that this can be really powerful for that. Beyond that, can you get some different adaptations? When you're looking at, like, let's say the Simple and Sinister, when people are so, for people who don't know, there's a Simple challenge, the Simple Standard, and the Sinister, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you need a 100 one-arm swing or 100 swings. I think it's one arm, isn't it?
Yeah, single.
With a 32 kilo bell in 10 minutes. Or is it 5 minutes?
It's 5
minutes. It's 5 minutes.
It's 5 minutes.
And then you need 10 get-ups?
10 get-ups in 10 minutes.
In 10 minutes,
you get
okay.
60 seconds rest between, I believe.
And tell them, I screwed that up, so tell everyone about Sinister.
Yeah, Sinister is incredibly hard to do, and from what I've seen, most people take a little while to get to it, but it's a 48 kilo bell with the same parameters. You're doing 5 sets of 20, basically single arm swings, and then you got to go do 10 get-ups with it. So it's no joke. And it's also one of those things. It's a program to follow, and you're going to get good at doing that for sure. And it's going to be a thing where 30 days in, you're like, oh God, I got to do this again. Or you're going to be like, oh good, I get to do this again. And I think that's part of going into these challenges. Streaks are always interesting psychologically for people. I think,
Sure.
you could derail yourself if you miss a day, or you could figure out how well you are at bouncing back and saying, like, hey, one day's one day, whatever, and should you do 200 if you miss a day,
Yeah, that's another question entirely. One of the things I want to point out about the Simple and Sinister workout is when you're using bells that size, and that's what you're training for. Not everybody is going to train, let's say, a full month straight. So slightly different thing, but a lot of people are doing in the neighborhood of 100 swings a day. And I talk to people who have done this challenge, but I'm not going to believe it if you tell me that you've done 100 swings a day with between a 40 and a 48 kilo bell to prepare for this challenge. I'm not going to believe you if you haven't had some crazy physical changes, because it is very challenging to do. And if you have the ability to recover from it, you're going to probably see some crazy changes in strength, conditioning, and muscle mass. Now, is it going to be the same amount of muscle mass that you would get from barbell training? Absolutely not. Is it going to be the same that you're going to get from bodybuilding? No way. But will you get some adaptations? Absolutely. So the problem is that to get to that level is so difficult, and the adaptations are going to be so unpredictable. I wouldn't recommend using this to get a specific adaptation, because we just don't know what's going to happen. Now, yeah. I know coaches who know how their body responds to swings, and then they're like, yep, time for me to do my challenge. I'm going to do my 100 swings a day because my body loves that. I get super tight. I get strong. I feel good. So I'm going to add that to my other work. And they're doing other stuff too. Yeah.
And even with that being said, maybe you are going to do it with those heavy bells, that 40 or even the 48, or, and you're in that high range, you're probably going to do a few sets warming up to that, so your working sets could all be that 100. So you're likely to end up with more than 100 swings anyways. Sure. So even then it's not very predictable to be like, oh, only these, whatever 3,000 swings got me exactly what I needed, Yeah.
Well, if you're doing that, though, you're probably not wasting your time listening to us.
Yes. Well, at least not this episode. But I will want to remind people of one more thing. I think if you're doing the 100 swings, do the 100 swings. There's plenty of stuff in this episode to consider. Just see what happens. Have fun with it.
Sure.
But for God's sakes, use your legs, okay? Start the swing by pushing your feet into the ground pretty hard.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, and that's the takeaway from this. If you're not doing that for all 100, you should probably stop and give yourself a break and then come back a little later and do it. because it doesn't matter. Essentially, it won't matter if you do 50 in the morning and 50 at night. You'll that's a check in the box sort of stat now, right?
Yeah, but now just to be extremely clear, the adaptation, if you do one swing a minute for 100 minutes, you're probably not gonna hit any kind of threshold to cause adaptation. You will have done your 100 swings, but
for a long ass time.
Yes,
you've been in the garage for 2 hours.
So specifically, what he's saying is, yes, you will check your box and get 100 swings. You can, if this is what you're doing, if it's a mental thing, if it's a checklist thing, you want to check the box. Cool. But don't expect the same adaptations from splitting your swings over morning and night. Now, if you were to go heavier and you were to do some in the morning and some in the evening, that might be a good way to have your to fatigue your body enough, but not so much that you can't recover from it. So that might be something to play with. What I think
maybe
it
even
would
the
work.
power aspect, could you do? Or is that still just going to be 100's too many for that sort of adaptation?
100's going to be way too many for that adaptation. And then to do it every day, it just isn't going to happen.
No, you gotta mix that up.
You're just not crushing 100 swings. Even if you did, you can do it for a workout. Okay. But you're not going to be doing it every day. You just can't put your real intent in the bell.
Yeah.
So you can maybe get some middle ground strength. So maybe not your high end, power or strength or whatever, but you can get somewhere in the middle. Anyway.
One other thing I wanted to ask you, and then we'll be done because we're pushing it. Now, if you're a practitioner and you're approaching these sort of challenges, you see these challenges, what is the lens you're looking through to decide whether to do this or not? Is it basically all the things you just said, or can you sum it up in a couple minutes, or is that another episode?
I would say if you're interested in going after consistency, improving your kettlebell swing technique, or getting some better, more baseline movement, then consider this challenge. It's probably a good idea. If you are chasing an adaptation other than general weight loss or general conditioning, then I probably would skip it. Or if you have room for it, if you've got the bandwidth, try it and see what happens. But I wouldn't expect a very specific adaptation. That being said, if you're a beginner and you're going to intermediate, you might see some crazy things happen to your body. So, if you want to check the consistency box, then great. That's a no-brainer. The activity box, that's kind of a no-brainer. Or if you have the time to be curious, then why not? And maybe you're just kind of in a rut and you're not sure what to do. Do this for a month, give your body a chance to reset and see what happens. There are times when I will go, I'll give myself a month. I will do cleans and presses. That's all I do for every workout. And good things happen to my body. I don't have to do a lot of thinking. And I feel pretty good. It doesn't break me down. It's a pretty well-balanced movement. I train most of the things I need to train. I'm not interested, at least not right now, or at the time when I'm doing that, in getting a bigger bench. I don't really train my chest all that much anyway, unless I'm trying to lift heavy things. So yeah, I'm not getting a ton of development there, but it's not a goal of mine, so it doesn't matter. But everything else, quads, glutes, shoulders, midsection, that's all getting my back. That's getting trained pretty well. So I will take just that one exercise and cycle it through with varying rep schemes and volumes and number of days per week. And that's all I'll do, because I don't want to do anything else, and it works.
So are you basically saying that the Roger Parks Clean and Press for 30 Days Challenge is born right here at the end of this podcast?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. 4,000 a day.
4,000, all right.
So all you need is 4,000 a day.
4,000, a day. Okay. I was thinking for the month. But
No, 4,000 a day.
Okay, 4,000 a day, clean and press, 30 days, handle it. And you'll look just like Roger, which take it or leave it. That's what you're going to get. All right. Anything else, Coach?
No, I think we're good.
That's it. If you made it this far, surely you got something out of this. So please give it a follow. Feel free. I think you can even, if you're on Spotify, maybe even on Apple, you can even send us a text message directly. It's up at the top by the little picture of our faces and the logo of Kettlebell Corner. And subscribe to us on YouTube, where we put these out there amongst other videos. All right. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Stay strong, everybody. Thanks for listening.